We're talking about inclusive, culturally responsive, and culturally sustaining pedagogies. And frankly, you could think about those as the filter or the lens through which we can do all of the other practices you see here. So engaging students in active learning, in experiential learning, but doing that through a culturally responsive or culturally sustaining lens is going to be most effective. In the middle panel, those high impact practices are validated by the AAC&U through decades of research in higher education. We're thinking about like collaborative projects, which I talked about a couple of minutes ago, undergraduate research. The first year experience is, highly powerful approach for students, especially students who might be the first in their family to go to college, or students who are returning to college after many years. And then to the right, we call these the emergent practices. There's really meaningful data that points to why and how each of these is helpful. It's just that that doesn't go back quite as many years. So we're hoping to see ongoing research on each of these. What we want to make clear, though, is that across all of these different pedagogies and practices, there are two key common elements. Faculty are designing learning experiences where our students, our adult learners, can actively explore ideas, ask questions, and solve meaningful problems. And at the same time, we're empowering our students to think about the connections between what's happening in the classroom, their academic experience, and their lived experience. What's going on for them in their work life? What do they bring with them? What are the assets from their cultural background, from their community life? So all of this is really critical. And I'm just going to talk in a little bit more detail about one of these approaches, experiential learning, because there's a tremendous amount of research that shows that this is really helpful with our adult learners. When we do this well, when we design a course thoughtfully and carefully to incorporate this approach throughout, we see that we're helping our students to frame their experiences. We're designing in a way that gives them agency in the learning process, in which they're really partnering with us as educators in what happens in that learning environment. We're carefully aligning the student experiences with the outcomes, the learning outcomes we have in mind for them. We're creating numerous opportunities throughout the term for reflection, for application, helping our students and giving them space to make meaning of what they're learning about. And we're also making clear, as I said a moment ago, like we're in partnership here. We're, as educators, learning alongside our students. This is not about us being the holder of all of the information that we're then delivering to them. This is much more about a partnership and about students bringing expertise that they have, very likely from years of work experience, that are relevant in this situation. The extent to which we can be flexible as educators and appreciate the role of serendipity in learning is important. But as I said earlier, we have a line to walk between being flexible and also creating a sense that everyone here is being held accountable for meeting the expectations that we've agreed to at the start of the course. As I said earlier, we want to practice these approaches, whether it's active learning, experiential learning, through a lens of inclusive excellence, through a lens of culturally responsive and culturally sustaining teaching. As I said, chapter 1 of that teaching and learning toolkit has great resources, and we have a series of guides coming out very soon on equity-minded teaching and learning. We're really excited to share with you. And so if you're here today, we have your email address, and we're going to share those free resources with you this summer as they're released. So we have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to pass it now to Susan to kick off a little bit of discussion.
Thanks, John. So I know we've presented a lot of different ideas and a lot of different information here for you. And we'd like to open it up. We'd like to invite you to come off of the mic or share in the chat. And also we have a shared note-taking document that Sarah's going to place in the chat that will allow you to answer these questions also digitally. But these questions are, understanding these assumed characteristics of adult learners, what have you seen that has worked well in your practice? We know there's a lot of expertise that is here, and we'd love you to share any ideas you have. And if you've not already had success with adult learners, what have you heard here today that might advance your practice in some way? We welcome you to answer both or any of those questions. I'm seeing the word flexibility twice here already, an emerging theme in our document. Real world projects, absolutely. And supporting neurodivergency. Yeah, that's definitely coming, and I'm appreciating that word so much in how we're framing what might be happening for all kinds of brains that are coming to the classroom. Supporting parents and attendance policies. It's a great one. And if anybody has actually even concrete examples of some of these ideas and how that has looked either in the classroom or on your practice, we welcome you to come off mute to share. How did you design that to happen, to be operationalized?
I see that Catherine posted in the chat, making sure that adult learners have a go-to person they can contact for academic and non-academic support. I totally agree. And, we know one really helpful strategy is to bring representatives from these offices that provide academic and non-academic support right into your classroom during the first week or so of the term to introduce the person so that students can connect the name with the face and the resources. And by bringing the people into class time, it's sending a couple of really powerful messages to students. One is, this is really important. It's so important that we're going to use class time right now at the beginning of the term to make sure everyone is clear on what these resources are, where you go to access them, and who the key people are that you need to know. It also destigmatizes the use of these resources because it conveys to students that these resources are here for everyone. I'm not waiting until I see you struggling to refer you to the resources. Instead, I'm saying to everyone now during the first week, I hope everyone will make use of the resources. That is a really high impact strategy that we know works really well. And by destigmatizing the use, it makes them feel much more accessible to everybody.
And
I'm the person that wrote about, I was just going to say, I'm the person that wrote about the flexibility for students who are parents. And what we do is, and I'm sure many of my teaching colleagues do it, is, and most of my students, I'm their first semester experience because I'm a skill building class. They're building their math skills to be college ready. So they're coming in with never being in college, their parents, and they have to fill out a little student questionnaire. And some of the questions include whether or not they're a parent and if they have support at home with, for childcare. These are for my online students. And so that gives me a little red flag. If I know people have kids, they usually tell me how old they are. They give me all kinds of details that I don't necessarily ask for. But that, for me, then I kind of know who the parents are. And so if they're like, I got a sick child, I got a, there's a bazillion things that go on with kids. I'm like, that's okay. Okay, take care of your child. So it's just because that should be your priority. People need to take care of their children. So that's all, and pretty simple as that. And sometimes people write other things on this questionnaire. They might share, they don't have to, but they might share if they struggle with some kind of mental illness. I certainly ask them about learning disabilities because I want to make sure they get to the right services in support of that. But that too. And I will say the one thing that I make sure everybody in the class knows is to communicate with me. You're going to miss class for a variety of reasons. Just send me a little quick email. That's all I ever ask. And there's no penalty. Just good to know so I can reach out back to them. So simple as that.
I appreciate that, Maureen. And, I think that, and this is really consistent with what we're seeing in the chat about, knowing who our students are and understanding them. One other really helpful strategy that many instructors use is to assign a very simple autobiography assignment at the beginning of the term in any class, right? So not just a class where writing autobiographies might be part of what students are going to do. This is helpful in mathematics. It's helpful in any kind of course. And it's short, you don't have to grade it, but it's sending a really important message to students that you want to know them. It can be overwhelming to do that if you're teaching 5, 6, 7 courses and you've got a lot of students in every one. So the idea is not that you're going to memorize what's there. It may take you a few weeks before you've read all of them, right? But you're sending an important message about knowing who your students are and encouraging them to share something that they really want you to know, not something that it's uncomfortable for them to share, something that's too private, but something that's going to help for them to feel a sense of connection with you. It establishes a relationship, and it also empowers us as educators to meet our students where they are and to support them. Bonnie's asking an important question about how we support individual flexibility and fairness to all students with due dates and deadlines. I'm going to see if my colleague Susan has ideas about that.
Yeah, well, I think we're certainly trying to explore that, but again, getting to know your students, inviting that can get to that individual flexibility that you're offering, right? And to me, by knowing that and in creating that tone, it creates a sense of fairness that all students have that possibility of really getting to be known by you as an instructor and addressing any needs that they have that might be an accommodation that they might want, or, a shift in the assignment of how it goes, or how, what their deliverable would be for you in that assignment, because you know who they are, right? Even in those few weeks that it would take to read that autobiography, that can then align to all the students, getting a flexibility in due dates and deadlines as needed or necessary. That's how I would answer that one. And I welcome others that might have a different answer.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Susan. And, I think as we have about a minute left, so I'll just say this to close. Our focus in this session was on, pedagogies and practices, but a key role of faculty, whether we are full-time faculty, part-time faculty, you might be a student affairs professional working in a teaching role. It's critical that we are equipped with the pedagogies, with the andragogical approach that Susan laid out earlier, but also with this sense with each time we enter into our classroom, whether it's face-to-face, hybrid, fully online, we have to be on the lookout for where we can be supporting our students in other ways that go above and beyond, how we've designed the course, right? So that sense of flexibility and structure, that sense of, being on the lookout for how we can connect students with the myriad holistic student supports that are available on our campus, all of that is going to be really critical in helping our students or adult learners ultimately get through a course successfully, having learned what we hope they'll learn, getting to the course so that they can then progress with their experience at the college. So with that, we're at 4:15, so I'm going to bring this to a close. I want to thank my colleague Susan Adams for her great collaboration on this, our colleague Sarah Kinnison, who's been here helping with the chat, and all of you for being part of this Adult Learner Summit today. We hope the final session coming up in a little while is productive for you and that this has been time well spent. Always great to have powerful learning in the ATD network. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Thanks, everybody.